So I don't know if you noticed, but Star Wars news has been going crazy lately, and not in a good way. There are a ton of different articles and takes about what was going on with The Mandalorian Season 3. I think a lot of people were disappointed with that season. And one of those people was Tamara Morrison, who says he was waiting for the call and never got it. He also talks about how Mando came in and ruined his show. It's pretty freaking based, but it's caused a crazy uproar. There are even rumors coming out that Jon Favreau is walking away from Lucasfilm. He's done making any Star Wars content under Kathleen Kennedy, at least according to some folks out there. And yet there's a new report coming from a somewhat reliable source that is crazier than all of this other news. This has to do with Kathleen Kennedy and Disney executives literally crapping on Luke Skywalker, saying that they want no new content with Luke Skywalker. Is it possible that the reason Kathleen Kennedy intervened and brought Grogu back into the Mandalorian show is because she didn't want a lot of content with Grogu and Luke Skywalker together? So I think we have to break down this new report. I'll tell you what I think about it. And then after that, I want to address why this is such a big freaking deal and why Lucasfilm absolutely needs to do something about this exact issue. So smash a freaking like on this video and let's begin. Okay, so first up, what is the deal? Where's this report coming from? Well, there's a YouTube channel out there called WDW Pro. I think it stands for Walt Disney World Pro. And this channel claims to have inside sources. They have gotten some stuff right in the past. I'll be completely honest with you guys, I'm not super familiar with this channel and even their past scoops, but enough people have brought this to my attention that I think it's worth going over. And again, this channel has gotten stuff right in the past. And so essentially in their newest video, which is gaining major traction right now, they talk about how one of their sources indicated that there was this big meeting with a bunch of top Disney executives, and this included people from Hasbro and other people that had to do with licensing over at Disney.
He would not be allowed to be a main character in any of the shows. He was at best allowed to be an occasional cameo. This is a quote from Lucasfilm. He is a cobwebbed character. He is a museum piece. He sells, but he is not a significant part of the matrix of new content going forward. So, if Grogu is going to stay with Luke, then you lose Grogu. He's out of sight, with the exception of some glancing exposure. And for everybody in that meeting, that would have been catastrophic. Favreau has control of his own shows, but Kennedy has say over new shows. If there's no Luke show, and there's no Ranger show where he's supposed to appear, then there's no Luke. And if there's no Luke, there's no Grogu if you force them together. But the page has turned on Luke Skywalker, Lucasfilm said regarding current active media. Kareem Daniel had protected Favreau so that his contract with creative control was ironclad. But Favreau didn't have anything written in to ensure green lighting of series. So when Gina Carano was taken out, and by the way, that may have been more than a culture war issue, that may have been about getting power of Lucasfilm, Favreau lost his Luke storyline with Rangers. The magic is gone, and all of it so Kennedy could hold on to power.
So a couple of different things going on there. First of all, in the first part of this scoop, they are talking about how there was this big meeting with people from Hasbro, with creative consultants, with people from Lucasfilm, and they were talking about the future shows. Now, I can only imagine this is a meeting that likely took place due to the fact that there's such a relationship between Hasbro and Lucasfilm, and essentially Hasbro needs to be aware of what is coming down the pipeline as far as content is concerned for Star Wars, so that they can then make the different merchandising, go through a process with Lucasfilm to make sure that that's cool, etc., etc. And I think especially because merchandising is such a big part of Lucasfilm, I can kind of believe a meeting like this taking place. And they claim in the scoop that executives from Lucasfilm basically just said Luke Skywalker's not going to be the main character of anything, therefore don't go crazy with Luke Skywalker stuff to the toy people. And I think the whole reason that matters is because in the second part of this scoop, they claim that Jon Favreau was unable to decide what shows get green lit next. Once he is on a show as producing it and creating it, he has full and complete and total control to tinker with it and do whatever he wants. And Kathleen apparently can't come in and tinker that much according to the contracts, but Kennedy holds the power and the ability to greenlight shows. And so therefore, if she doesn't greenlight a Luke Skywalker show, if she doesn't greenlight another show that is said to involve Luke Skywalker heavily, then you don't get more Luke Skywalker. Therefore, you don't get merchandising for Luke Skywalker. Therefore, you don't get merchandising for Grogu. And it's this whole thing to kind of connect what was going on with bringing Grogu back to political agendas via Kathleen Kennedy. They go pretty far down this path, saying that Kennedy's like trying to get power and eliminating Gina Carano partially so that she can then, you know, change the New Republic show and change the trajectory of Luke being on there. And here's the thing, like frankly, I don't know that I believe this report. I'm just going to be honest with you guys, and I want to explain why I'm very skeptical of the report. But I just gotta say, man, if this is true, it is horrible. And I can also see why people believe it. I mean, it would make sense and line up with a lot of things that people already believe is going on at Lucasfilm. And if this does turn out to be true, and they have no plans for Luke Skywalker, and they're not going to be using him at all in his own show, and he's not going to be one of the leads in the Dave Filoni movie, I think a lot of fans are going to lose their freaking mind, because we did recently hear that Kathleen Kennedy absolutely lied and played this really crazy power play game with Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige was going to do a Star Wars movie, and apparently now we're hearing that was really Alan Bergman saying, hey, let's placate Kennedy, let's get Kevin Feige over here and start doing some Star Wars. Like, that was absolutely on the table, and Kathleen Kennedy sort of always kept the production and the discussion about that Kevin Feige movie on the low. She was kind of sabotaging it by just letting it linger, and then literally came out at Celebration and lied, saying that it was essentially a rumor. So I wouldn't necessarily put it past Kathleen Kennedy to be playing some really weird political games and interfering with the different production of these shows. And the thing is, this is a big problem for Lucasfilm, because there is this narrative, this perception that Disney doesn't like Luke Skywalker. They don't want anything with Luke Skywalker, and they just want to push their own characters instead. As somebody that makes Star Wars content a lot, right? I do Nerd Theory, I make different videos, I'm in the fandom, and I just see this everywhere, man. Like, everybody's like, dude, they clearly want to push out old fans. They don't care about George's stuff. They just want to do their own thing. And I think there's some evidence to suggest that. I can't really imagine that they would be doing that, especially we just got the Kenobi show and they did a bunch of merchandising with like Kenobi and Vader. These are obviously George's characters. So I have trouble believing that this is actually a thing, that Kathy is really just trying to shut down all the George stuff and shut down Luke stuff. I'm sure many of you that are watching this video, you also don't really believe it. But the thing is, you can't even really blame people for feeling that way if you look at a lot of the stuff that's going on with Lucasfilm. And Lucasfilm has never actually come out and just properly addressed these other narratives. Like, they've never made any kind of statement. They've never had any presentation where they said a specific thing that indicates they are going to give OG fans a lot of stuff that they want. They're going to give new fans. Like, they have never ever said, we are here for all Star Wars fans, and we're trying to give each version, each generation of Star Wars fans something to really be happy about. So even though this might not be true, this perception that Lucasfilm and that Kathleen Kennedy are trying to take away the toys of really old school fans, that perception is damaging even if it's not real. And therefore, they should squash this thing. They should say, it is not real. I think Disney needs to come out and say, no, we actually love Luke Skywalker, and you're going to be getting more Luke Skywalker in the next couple of years than ever. And that brings me to why I actually don't believe this report, because I think Luke Skywalker is going to be a major player in Dave Filoni's movie. I think Luke Skywalker might even get his own show on Disney Plus. And I also think Luke Skywalker may well be involved in this Rey film. Kathleen Kennedy did comment on that at Star Wars Celebration. So to be crystal clear about this, guys, there's major problems happening at Lucasfilm. I'm not denying that. Like, there are massive problems, and I think they have huge problems with narratives like this popping up in the fandom. And I don't think these WDW guys are bad guys. They're probably actually having people reach out to them and tell them this stuff. I just don't think that the people that are telling them this stuff actually know what they're talking about. But if Disney hadn't screwed Star Wars up so badly over the past couple of years, narratives like this would just be pretty freaking easy to squash, right? Like if you just had more Luke stuff, if you had more awesome George stuff going on in Star Wars, then this rumor wouldn't even exist. And again, I'm a guy that thinks Luke Skywalker's coming back big time. Like I don't think they did all that work in The Mandalorian and then in the Book of Boba Fett to not bring this guy back. Like I strongly feel that young Luke Skywalker in his freaking prime is going to be in Filoni's movie. But I think Disney needs to just come out and say that. But again, if this is true, if more reliable people come forward and say that this is true, if you don't get Luke Skywalker stuff in the next couple of years, this is going to be massive. And we're always going to wonder exactly what was going on over at Lucasfilm to cause Star Wars to get into the state that it is in. But can you freaking imagine if this was actually the case? If the hit show and everything good that Star Wars had built up with the fans with The Mandalorian Season 2 was destroyed because Kathleen Kennedy doesn't want Luke Skywalker to be like the flagship character of Star Wars moving forward and instead wants to just bolster up Rey and sequel trilogy stuff, like holy crap, that will be one of the biggest L's of all time. And I definitely think they've done Luke dirty, and it's weird if they like never do anything with that young Luke that we've seen pop up a couple of times now. Like I totally get that. But this is a really big accusation coming in the form of this scoop. And if it's proven incorrect by more young Luke content coming out very soon, or at least in the Filoni movie, we're going to talk about that as well, because that would disprove WDW's report. So we'll just freaking see. But if I was Lucasfilm, I'd announce that Luke is coming back in his prime like ASAP. Smash a like on this video if you liked it. Let me know your thoughts on the whole situation in the comment section below. And if you want to watch more, why not check out this video I just made all about how Disney changed the freaking ending of The Mandalorian Season 3.